great to be here at CPAC. I came as, I think, as state senator many years ago. I've always loved to come to CPAC, and it's great to be here today in a little different situation. And so why don't we get to it? And I want to tell you, we've got a lot of young people here, so I want to make sure that I have a few words for all of you, because you're sitting out here and you're wondering, this guy's on the stage, could it be me? You know, any young man or woman that's here today, of course it can. Just have big hopes and big dreams. But I want to tell you that I have been very lucky in my life. You see, in 1976, there was almost a brokered convention. And it was at that time that I got to meet Ronald Reagan. And I want to tell you about it. I'd knock on people's doors at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. They'd come answering their doors like, why are you banging on my doors? He said, I need to get Ronald Reagan on the ballot. Just sign the ballot and I'll go away. And the fact is, we got him on the ballot, and then I was at the convention with Governor Reagan, and I had, at a very young age, found myself in charge of 5 states for Governor Reagan. And he lost that convention, but I was also up there when he told people at the end, he said, you know, I may have lost the battle, but I have not lost the war. And he came back, of course, 4 years later, and he kicked down the door, because you need to understand something about Ronald Reagan. The establishment never liked him. They never liked Reagan. They never liked Newt Gingrich, and they don't like me. Why? Because we're change agents. That's why. Because we want to bring change to the way this country works. And we don't take orders from lobbyists or special interests or people who live on K Street. We're here to try to serve the country. So Reagan was an incredible man because he had a strong ideology, conservative philosophy. Government as a last resort, not as a first resort. And I was honed in that as a very young man. In 1982, I ran for Congress. I was 30 years of age, and I ran on the Reagan philosophy: lower taxes, balanced budgets, economic growth, common sense regulations. And in 1982, nobody wanted to appear with Ronald Reagan. It was great, because that meant I got to spend more time with Ronald Reagan. And he came and campaigned for me in Ohio. And in 1982, running on Reagan principles of tax cuts and less spending and less regulation and individual power, the strength and the power of the individual, in 1982, I was the only Republican in America to defeat an incumbent Democrat running on a conservative message. I also shared, of course, Ronald Reagan's philosophy on building a strong defense. And I want you to know, when I'm president and I sit across the chair or the table from Vladimir Putin, when he looks into my eyes all the way to my soul, you know what he'll see? A freedom fighter. That's what Putin will see. So I went to Congress and participated in the military buildup, but I also have to tell you that I also found waste and abuse inside the Department of Defense, and I fought it. You know why? We can't squander resources. We have to make sure that the resources we spend on defense get to our men and women in uniform on the front lines and doesn't get squandered by bureaucrats or defense contractors that are not playing fair. And then 6 years into my term as a congressman, I got on the budget committee. And there were people that, that said, well, we can kind of manage this budget. And I looked at the Republican budget and the Democrat budget, and I didn't think either of them were worth the paper they were printed on. And I was at home filling my Jeep up at the gas tank, and I was complaining. A guy walked around the corner. He said, if you don't like what's going on in Washington, what are you going to do about it? So I flew to Washington, got a meeting with all of my staff, and I said, we're going to write a budget for the United States of America. And they said, well, but there's 100 people down at the White House and 100 people on Capitol Hill who are writing budgets, and we only have 6 people. I said, I know we're overstaffed, but if we stay out of each other's way, we can get it done. My first budget was voted on. There was a Bush budget, there was a Democrat budget, a Black Caucus budget, and a Kasich budget. And the vote on the Kasich budget was 405 no and 30 yes. And some people thought we got killed. I said, oh, we got 29 other people that think we can run America. Let's just keep going. And year after year after year, I fought the establishment. I fought the establishment because they wanted the status quo. My third budget, I got more votes than the president got for his. And I was building a team of people. And in 1993, when Bill Clinton wanted to propose a tax increase, I said we should have an alternative. And the Republicans said, oh no, let's just criticize. I said, I didn't come to Washington to criticize, I came to build something. We had a meeting, there were 36 people who spoke in the Republican conference, 34 said we shouldn't have an alternative, and 2 said that we should. I walked to the back of the room with Newt, I said, Newt, how do you think we're doing? He said, well, we're doing a little better than I thought we'd be doing. And we offered that budget that year, and Joe Scarborough just says repeatedly on his show, it was the fighting that was going on to balance the federal budget without political considerations that got him involved in politics. We swept the victory in 1994, and we took control for the first time in 40 years in 1995 with a conservative agenda. And we went through the ups and downs in the Clinton administration. I mean, Bill Clinton never wanted to balance the budget. Clinton's the kind of a guy that if a mob is coming at him, he gets in the front of it and calls it a parade, okay? So we fought like crazy. Now, why was I for a balanced budget? Because I like numbers? Are you kidding me? You see, balancing budgets and cutting regulation and reducing taxes are about economic opportunity and job creation. And in that budget agreement that we made with the Clinton administration, where we forced them, and they were for nothing real, and they were for higher taxes, we cut the capital gains tax, we provided a family tax credit, and we achieved the first balanced budget since man walked on the moon. We paid down $500 billion of the national debt, and guess what? America's economy was booming. People had jobs, wages were growing, and then it was time for me to leave this place. Frankly, I'm glad we're not in D.C., because every time I go there, I break into a cold sweat. But the fact is that formula worked, and I stepped out of politics thinking I would never go back. But my state was in so much trouble. We had lost 350,000 jobs. Our credit was about to be downgraded. 20% of our operating budget was in the hole, and I ran on a campaign saying not only would we balance the budget, we would cut taxes. And people said it couldn't be done. Well, you see, if you know what you're doing, and you don't worry about who's yapping at you or criticizing you or complaining, it's amazing what you can get done. And guess where we are today? Instead of being $8 billion in the hole, we're $2 billion in the black. Instead of being down 350,000 jobs, we're up over 400,000 jobs. Our pensions are safe, our credit is good, and our wages are growing faster than the national average, and people have hope in Ohio. Now let me tell you all something else. Because always a lot of questions, is Kasich a conservative? Well, I only reformed welfare, balanced the federal budget, cut taxes, promoted more school choice with charter schools and obviously the voucher program, more than about anybody. We're reforming welfare again. We have shrunken the state of Ohio's employment to the lowest in state government in 30 years. Get over it. Okay, get over it. But let me tell you this. See, I come from the Reagan and Kemp school. When our economies are doing better, we have an obligation to reach out to those people who live in the shadows, to give them an opportunity to achieve their God-given potential. And that means the mentally ill. The mentally ill should not be sleeping under a bridge or living in our prisons. They have a right to be treated, to get on their feet and assume their God-given purpose. The drug addicted can be rehabbed, and in our state, we have an 80% success rate in treating people in the prisons and putting them in the community where we give them responsibility to get on their feet, and the working people, the working poor in this country. Isn't it time that we reward them for working hard and getting a pay raise rather than to have to turn it down because they lose more benefits than they gain? Let's get back to what makes sense to give everybody a chance to rise. We want our developmentally disabled to be fully integrated, and we're working towards that. And let me just tell you one other thing. Our friends in the minority community, we want them to develop entrepreneurship. We want them to believe that they're as a part of America as anybody else that lives in this country. So I ran for re-election in Ohio, one of the toughest states to win. I won 86 out of 88 counties, 26% of the African-American vote, 60% of women, and 51% of union households, and I won by 30 points in Ohio. Bringing people together works. Now, a message to it's a message for everyone, but particularly to the young people who are here today. Here's what it is. Here's what it is. You should all know, this is my present to you, that you were all made special. No one has ever been made like you, and no one ever will. You see, I believe that the Lord makes us special for a special purpose. Do you understand that, young lady? You've been made special for a special purpose. And you have gifts that no one has. No one is quite like you because you are made special. And your job is to find those gifts and to live a life bigger than yourself and change the world in which you live. And you see, the Lord doesn't care whether you're running for president or whether you're helping somebody who's in a hospital with the family who's depressed, or making sure that no one gets bullied, or making sure you're there to listen to one of your friends who may be having a hard time. You see, the Lord doesn't measure us one against the other. One big task, the other one is little. They're all equal in His eyes. And you are made special to come together as a generation. It's like part of a giant mosaic. And when you lose that sight, or when you never find it, the mosaic remains incomplete. But when we as a society decide that we can use those tools, and let me tell you, the strength of our country and the spirit of our country does not rest in Washington. Oh yeah, the big wigs, listen, I can get our budget balanced, I can get the wages growing, I can get the border fixed, I can get the Social Security, I can do those things. I know how to do them. But you see, it's a two-part issue. It's not just what happens up here, but the strength of our country, the vitality of our country, the spirit of our country rests in our families, our neighborhoods, our communities, and our states. Don't wait for somebody to show up to fix the problems where you are. Fix them yourself. And I'm counting on you two guys. For some reason, we think we have to wait for somebody in the government to come in on a big white charger to solve our problems. It will not happen. Oh, I'm going to give you your power. Send education, welfare, infrastructure, health care for the poor, job training, all back to where we live. And you'll have more power. We're going to cut taxes because we have to run America from the bottom up. That's what we have to do. That's what works. But you know, the greatness of our country is not waiting for another government program. Some of them are important, okay? Some of them are important. But you know how we really fix things in America? When we put our shoulder to the wheel to make our schools work better, when we fight drug abuse in our communities, you got to tell a kid, don't you be doing those drugs. You obscure your purpose, your God-given purpose. You got to stand up and fight against poverty in your community and get businesses in to work with people who are on welfare, to get them trained so they can get work. We need to encourage young people, you adults who are out here, join a mentoring program. Get kids to see their future. Don't leave them behind. See, these things don't take government. They take us believing in ourselves. And the little town where I came from, in McKees Rocks, we didn't wait for the president. We didn't wait for anybody. We were neighbors and we took care of one another. And if we do it again, we'll fix the programs up here that the federal officials need to fix without regard to politics, by the way, with good conservative principles. But when that power comes back, you take care of your job. And by the way, if I need you to help me break through these problems in Washington, I'll give you a call. And if you need me, I'll come running to your neighborhood. Let's make a deal, okay? And we'll rebuild America and its spirit and make it the best it has ever been. We can do it, and we will do it. Thank you all.